Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Faster Masters Rowing Radio, where having a rowing coach only makes you better. Following a program gives you a true pathway to becoming a confident rower who's respected by your peers. You can become the athlete you want to row with. I'm Rebecca Caroe, and I'm joined by Marlene Royle.
Hello, Rebecca, and hello to our Faster Masters Rowing audience. It's nice, very nice to be here after such a big event yesterday.
Yeah, and hello to everybody who's listening in the European time zone. Now that I don't live in the UK, I've got into the habit that Europeans are very, very rude about Americans, that Americans pretend that there's a country called Europe. Hello to everyone in Europe. And I was like, it's not a country. We're a collection of different countries. So anyone who's in the European time zone, let us know in the comments. We're very, very pleased to have you with us. Because this is the first week of the month. And the first week of the month, we found in our audience survey that our times was just too late at night for live listeners who aren't in North America or in Asia Pacific. So delighted that you're with us now. So Marlene, yesterday, what happened?
Well, we did the Rigging for Masters webinar, and we had a terrific turnout, absolutely. But our guests were just exceptional. I mean, actually, we had four main speakers, Rebecca included, plus Mike Davenport, Mike Purser, and Volker Nolte. And, each speaker covered a different area of approaching rigging, how it fits into the big picture, how it fits into your club, how it fits into you as an individual, how it fits into you from the point of view of your fitness, etc. All the choices you have, how to kind of suss out for yourself, permission to experiment. There were a lot of great questions. So, I think all of us, the five of us, who participated, I think we all came across with feeling really inspired that, the audience was so diverse. I mean, we had 4 or 5 different countries. We had about a 50-50 split between men and women, which was very interesting to me. Because my experience, this is totally informal. My experience is that at camps and lessons, it tends to be more women and technical stuff tends to be more men. And in this case, we were like 50-50 split, which was quite interesting, which shows us that lots of people want to learn about this stuff, right?
So, very true. And contextually, what I found so good about Mike Davenport's talk was he put rigging into the context of all the other elements of your rowing, from the absolute beginning of a club leadership right up to whatever your personal goals are. And that helped me understand where it fits into the broader picture and the sort of impact you can expect to have on your own personal rowing just from changes in your rig.
Yeah, it was so interesting, and putting again on the continuum, like, are you like massive compulsive about rigging, or like, it's okay, I'm just going to do whatever. And I think about this like, because I'm also a cross-country ski coach, right? So there are people who wax their skis more than they ski on their skis. So, that would be like way to this side. And then there are people who never do anything and their poor skis are like hairy and dried out and really look horrible. Like, how do you get any glide? You've neglected your skis so much. But they work, So, it's kind of the same, absolutely the same type of thing, which I thought was really interesting. I learned some cool stuff, when you listen to these guys talk and they talk about it all the time. It's a little bit like us, we're talking about training and rowing way more than the average person does per week. Like, I'm probably talking, honestly, between speaking and writing, I'm probably speaking rowing 60 hours a week. So you get used to saying things, you get used to hearing yourself. It's so good when you hear somebody else and you and they're used to hearing themselves too. But it's so good that you hear somebody else and you're like, oh no, but I came at it from this direction. And oh, you have to pay attention to the pressure on the handle means this much pressure on the blade. And when you move the collar, the pressure on the handle means this much pressure on the blade. I'm like, I'm going to go fix my oars. So, there were lots of very, very interesting nuances that I also like put back into my rigging toolbox, so to speak.
Your mental toolbox for rigging, certainly. I found exactly the same thing. I was sitting there planning what I want to do for my own cruise and also what I'm going to do as a coach in recommendations for our club structure, and taking that forward so that everybody has a better experience, because you can always make improvements, and it's nice to feel that others are kind of on the same pathway as you are.
Yeah, it was interesting, and they were keeping it. I mean, granted, there are general principles that apply to all rigging from a biomechanical point of view and a performance point of view. But they spent time to talk about what the recreational rower needs and what the competitive rower needs and what the person who's in between needs. And that was the whole point. This is rigging for masters. We're dealing with a very diverse group of people who have lots of different body sizes. We are not all, this tall, this with this much wingspan, with this much flexibility, who have 40 hours a week to train. So, I think they addressed those aspects really well. And that's what we were looking for.
So just as a reminder to listeners, the rigging webinar was not a one-off. It has been recorded. So even if you are listening now and you didn't join us live, it doesn't matter. You can still buy the product. It is fastermastersrowing.com/rigging. And the price is going to go up this weekend. So we're recording this on the 7th of October, and it's going to go up on the 10th of October. So buy now before the rush. That was just me being jokey, sorry. I will say that it is never going to be included in any of our subscription programs. So if you're buying a program from us, whether it's the individual, crew, or club program, you're not going to get this. This is a standalone, separate product. But if you buy it, you get lifetime access. So you will have it forever, and you'll be able to come back over and over, download the rigging charts, download the oar charts. They are incredibly helpful at giving you a starting point to knowing how to set up your boat to suit your physiology. So that's their advert over. I was just blown away by the quality of the presentation.
Yeah, I was too.
Enthusiasm with which people piled in and had great questions.
I know. It was the number of people who were live watching.
Yeah.
Was impressive, and the number of people who stayed after when they didn't have to was impressive. But I do think that it's important that people have resources and they know where to go, because I love rigging, but I certainly do not know rigging on the level of Mike and Volker, right? And when I have questions, ladies and gentlemen, I go to them. So it's important to understand what you know and what you don't know, and if you don't know something, it's important to know who to ask. And I think that's a big point of what we were trying to do, is let you know that there are people out there who are really good resources who can answer. If we can't answer your question on that level, we're going to say, you know what, this is somebody who can. And I think that's important for any profession, that where to, when you don't know the answer, don't pretend you know the answer. Like, refer somebody to someone who knows the answer. And, we're more than happy to play that role.
Yeah. So very, very stoked, very exhausted. It took a lot of planning and organization, but it validates what we, Marlene and I, believed when we first set up Faster Masters Rowing, was that there is an audience for this, that what we can teach is different than what's out there at the moment for youth rowing and for scholastic rowing. and that there are people like you who are keen to hear it. So for me, it was a big validation of our overall plan, which is we need to advocate for masters around the world, because at the moment there's a lack of support for us as a group, and you provide the support and people come.
One of the things that was really funny and totally impromptu is the competition of the collective age of your single and you. That was very, very funny. And somebody started it. I was number 2. I was like, I'm 87. And then we ended up with 122.
Yeah, so that's
122. Can you imagine that?
Nearly as old as she is, I think. I think she was in her 70s and her boat was 60 years old.
Well, it's got to be close to that, because Mike Davenport told the story of like you can still win a race in a really old boat, and then someone said, "Well, my boat's 29 years old," and I said, "Well, my boat's 31 years old," and then it just kind of went in the chat. But I think we topped out at 122 collective age of you and your boat. So I thought that was really funny.
That was really, really funny. And that's what I like about Masters. It's as if we're standing on a riverbank somewhere, just chatting to the people who are around us. And I can't wait for this pandemic to end so that we can actually get together and hang out together with people from outside our own club or region. Now, today's photograph, for people who are paying close attention, is from Michael Harrison Hussein. And it's a glorious series of pictures that he has put up of him in and around his own boathouse. And this was the most kind of artistically graphic, looking down the boat shed, out the door, and there he is in his red shirt, carrying his single out to go and practice. And I just loved it. It was just a really, really good photograph. So Michael, thank you so much for sharing that. If people want to see more of his images, they're all on the Masters Rowing International group.
Where is his boathouse?
I didn't catch that. I'm sorry.
It looks southern, judging by the sky. It looks warm.
Yeah. I'll go find out for you. Now, we have today, our big topic is tapering. I know that in the advert, I said that we were going to talk about steering the head of the Charles, but due to a scheduling conflict, we're going to be recording that in, is it 2 hours time? So we will go live again in a couple of hours to get that. And you'll get a double whammy this week. So you'll get tapering now, which of course is relevant, and then steering the head of the Charles, which for some people will also be relevant. Marlene, let's kick off. Tapering is about the part of your training plan that leads you towards a big event race. What's
you love it or you hate it.
What's it going to do for you?
Well, the purpose of the taper is recovery, 100%. So depending on, if you think about the moment you have to go to the line, you want, the way I like to, now different coaches taper people differently, but the way that I like to taper people is that I want you absolutely chomping at the bit when you cross that line. I want you so ready to go that you can't stand it. And for some people, this is the taper period. Some people love it because they love the extra rest. Some people hate it because they're training like hell and they think they always have to train like hell, and they want to train like hell right up to the starting line. You can't do that. You have to allow, if you've had coming into your taper, you're doing quite a bit of intense work. Okay. If you look at your training program, there's at least 2 days at race pace work. Sometimes the third day has mixtures of race pace work. You're doing a lot of work. Okay. This is going to take a toll on you, but we want to create a type of what we call super compensation. So we want to like stress the systems, push everything up, and then let you recover and go, whew, now I can do it. So it, the amount that you taper and the way that you taper depends a little bit on how many sessions someone is training per week. But the way we approach it right now, because we're more on a 6-day-a-week kind of schedule, is that, about 7 or 8 days out, we start cutting the volume way down to half. So you're still training on the same frequency, but we're decreasing the amount of work that you're doing. You're doing short, targeted, concentrated work, and we're decreasing the volume way down. And the purpose of that is, one, to give you a little bit of rest from the point of view of letting your muscle glycogen recover. And your muscle glycogen is what fuels you. Like when you have those sore, achy muscles or you're stiff, that's your muscle glycogen is not recovered. You need to recover. If you have heavy legs, your muscle glycogen isn't recovered. So you want to allow 8 to 10 days to fully recover that muscle glycogen. So your gas tank is topped up from a metabolic point of view. And cheating and doing more is a really bad idea. I'm going to tell you that right now. You want to build up so that you're going to be fast on your race day. And so that means you've got to taper down, you've got to rest, you've got to be ready to go 100% when it's time to cross the line. But it's also a time to mentally prepare. People sometimes forget about the mental preparation here. Maybe you're not on the water quite so long. Maybe you're on the water half the time. The other half of the time, you can be thinking about your race. You can be making sure you've checked everything that needs to be checked. You can make sure that little repair is done on your boat. You can use that time in other ways that are going to contribute to your race, but aren't taking the energy out of your muscles. Okay. So the mental side of it is good. Sharpening technique. I firmly believe that when you're in the taper, practice what you're good at. Okay. It is not a time to correct flaws. It's not a time to make huge changes to the way things work. It's a time to build confidence, do what you do best, get ready to race, zero in on your race plan, know it, think about it before you go to bed at night, think about it in the morning. And don't run around talking to 100 people the day of your race. Go race your race. And after your race is done and you've rode your race, then go socialize as much as you want. But like my serious racers for something like the Head of the Charles, like I'm like dinner at 6 in the hotel and don't see anyone, no social media, nobody, rest. All your mental energies has to go into the boat that morning before, and you can't violate those things.
Well, you can, but you are risking the outcome that you desire. And
yes,
so
yes,
you just
exactly.
don't let us stop you doing what you want to do, but you have to understand the trade-off.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we've talked about the Head of the Charles, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about the Head of the Charles. And, there are races that are more complex than other races are. And the Head of the Charles is one of those races that if you're a person who's in contention to win that race, honestly, it's all got to go perfectly. You've got to steer perfectly. You have the right fitness. Your mindset has to be right. You have to know which arch you're going through. I mean, you have to know what to do if you're in a collision. You have to know how to recover from a collision. I mean, everything has to be on the spot, handled correctly. Otherwise, it doesn't work. You're going to be second. Oh, you scraped the bridge abutment with your blade. Well, that was enough to lose by a half second. It's just such a complex race in many ways that that's just how it is. So give yourself the advantage, carve that time out for me time, and check in with the people who energize you and give you support. But really don't blow your energy out into the field. That's what I would say.
So there's one thing that you haven't yet mentioned, Marlene, but which we have done in a previous podcast, and I'll find the link and put it in the show notes. And that is to have a pre-race checklist. Now, the purpose of a pre-race checklist is nothing more than having a sequence of times and events of what you need to do when. The reason for having it is that on race day, often there are pressures and stresses which you cannot control. And so it's really important that you don't leave anything to chance. So if you decide that you're going to arrive at the boat park at this time and your boat is going to be rigged and ready by this time, or if the boat is already rigged from the day before, that you're going to do a final check over with your spanner and check everything's tight. And this is the time where you're going to collect your number, or this is the time when you're going to go for your pre-race land warm-up. You should have those times physically written down. Personally, I choose to keep them in my phone, but you can have it on a piece of paper. Trust me, when the pressure is on, you can get very flustered by something that's quite minor and which you could have organized better. So suddenly finding that you can't find your stroke coach, for example, and if you had had a list the night before where you were going to lay out everything on the floor that you were going to need the following day, all of your clothes, all of your spare clothes, all of the things that are going in your kit bag, all of the things that are going to go in the boat with you when you race, everything is there and you can then physically tick it off and check it. You should find that you don't come up against these sorts of troubles when something unexpected happens and it distracts you from your plan.
No, absolutely. And plan that that's going to happen. It's going to happen. You're at a regatta and somebody says, oh my God, somebody took my oars. Do you have oars? Does your club have oars I can borrow? Oh my God, my oar lock broke. Does somebody have a spare? So things happen. And as Rebecca says, it's just like your morning routine. You don't want to have to make decisions and think. Have a checklist. Know the timetable. If you can't check it off, have your friend who's with you check it off. But make sure that it gets done, because you don't want to go into your race with decision fatigue.
Correct.
Because the morning was chaotic, right? And some people are like super on time, and some people are super early, and some people are always 5 minutes late. No matter what they do, they're 5 minutes late. If you are that person, put everything 30 minutes ahead. Everything. Don't crowd your morning on a race day. Plan for 15 minutes of mess. And if it doesn't happen, great. You can just drink water. You can go to the bathroom another time. You can chill. You can sit. You can launch and sit in your boat and just like hang out for a couple of minutes before you row to the starting line. But understand that if you're that person who's always 5 minutes late, that could be 10 minutes late and you could miss your race, and you've just trained a whole year and missed your race because of some dumb mistake. So these are just things, they're not instructions. They're just things to think about, that there's a lot going on race day that doesn't go on in your everyday training. And it's fun and it's exciting to see people, and you have to plan for that, but you also have to be disciplined and row your race and then go have a good time.
So for the live listeners, there's lots of people watching live right now. I'd like you just to put something in the chat of one thing that we've said that has been helpful for you. One little nugget, little tip. And if I'm being super bold, I think one of the real benefits of Faster Masters rowing is this detailed experience that Marlene and I can share with you that you will not get from a book. This is not about how you theorize. Faster Masters is much more about the practical application of in our case, years and years of experience, probably at least 122 years if we add up both our ages and the ages of our boats. I'm making a limp joke, but it's all about the detail of something that you can add to your own personal mental toolkit of, that was interesting. Maybe I should try that.
Well, and as you know, as working, I think Aaron Sanders here says socialize after, not before the race. I mean, when we think about it, again, Adam Creek, who was in the Canadian Gold Medal 8, who was a guest on our Racing Starts Challenge, the first one that we did, he sent out a newsletter yesterday because he was the CBC commentator for rowing in Tokyo. And he sent out an interesting newsletter yesterday of like, oh my God, like the summer was so overwhelming, and these are things that happened, and these are things that went well, and these are things that didn't go well, and then this happened, and this happened, et cetera, et cetera. And his bottom line was, things take much more energy than you think they do. And Aaron writes, socialize after, not before the race. When you're socializing, it's just, in my opinion, now you may be a very extroverted person and it energizes you. For me as a racer, it would de-energize me. So the point is, like, think about, you're holding all your energy or you're discharging. Where do you want to discharge that energy? You have X amount of energy, and if you discharge it because you're so excited and seeing your friends, which is awesome, you've discharged it for your race. And so you have to look a little bit at what your personality type and what energizes you and what doesn't. But there's a reason why pole vaulters sit under the blanket in between their jumps.
They do.
Right? Because they want to pull all of their energy into the jump. So we're not saying don't socialize. We're saying think about the timing, and think about the timing relative to your race. And that is something that over the years I've seen has been a game changer for the competitive people. Like, I'm like, go to your hotel room and rest. Go have dinner with your friends, but be back by 6, and then just chill, focus, relax, do what you want, but just consolidate the energy that you're going to put into that race. And that's part of your tapering, is if it's an important event, like, you need to be ready, and you might need all of you, and even more so depending on what's going to happen on that course. So that's oh, Tony, good, equally applies to coaches. But yeah, it's focus. And again, everybody can do it a little bit differently. It's just think about it. It's awareness. Do you need to chit chat now, or could you do it later? Doesn't take the importance away from those people. It's just like, remember what you need to go down that course. What do you need to row the best race that you've been training all year for? Right? So
absolutely. Rich says, I was laughing so hard over this notion of throwing the race plan out the window because life happens. He says, remember the fish that jumped out of the water when the New Zealand Olympic women sculler won gold this year at the Olympics? Yeah, that's absolutely
yes.
right. I managed to get a screenshot of that, Rich, actually.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was amazing. I noticed that. And if anybody saw our Faster Masters program this month, in our drill about rowing circles, the loon sings.
There we go. So even the birds are in tune with Marlene's programming. So tapering, really important part, often a part that frustrates athletes because it feels different. It feels very weird to be doing less. It feels weird to feel energized and not tired. And it also can feel very, very strange because you're just not habituated to being in a state of very high energy all the time.
Right.
And that is what you need for racing. And so, again, it's part of the learning of how to be an oarsman, not a rower. You're in it for the long term. This is something you need to acquire. It's just a skill. We can all learn it, just like we can all learn to improve our blade work. There is no time like the present, and none of us is too old or too set in our ways if we're determined. And this is just one more trick to have in your little bag of skills that'll make you a better rower right across the board. And hopefully it will contribute to the enjoyment you have in your racing. We have previously discussed this, but after a race, you generally do a debrief. And one of the questions you ask yourself is, could I have done anything better? And if you can plan and prepare, as David Shackelford said, so that you have good preparation and you executed the preparation really well on the day, you did all the things that were on your checklist, then that's one thing where you could say, I couldn't have done that better.
Yeah.
I might adapt.
And that's fine. Right.
Exactly. That's it. So this is why it's important. It really is one of these small incremental learnings where they all add up to a great experience on race day.
And if you followed your checklist and everything went according to plan and you did the best you can, like, that's where you're at right now. And if you achieve that, I mean, that's 100% good in my mind. And it's going to bring you to the next level. Okay. So being prepared is important. But as Rebecca said, like, specify. What does that mean? Okay. That means I ate breakfast. I sent Rebecca an email yesterday. Make sure you eat breakfast before the webinar. Okay. Eat breakfast. Take care of yourself. If calling your mom makes you feel good and ready to race, like, call your mom, like, have whatever you need in your checklist. You need your snack. You need your this. You need your that. It's whatever makes you do your best, but be specific about it. Don't be like, oh, well, I don't really know. That was sort of okay. It's totally, oh, I could have done this. There's no could have, should have. This is just like, you followed your list. You can have as a point, in case I need to adapt race plan, I will. That's okay. That's perfectly acceptable, because like, if like Leslie had to call her racing aid at full speed to full stop in the middle of the head of the Charles before the Weeks Bridge. If you have to do it, you do it, but you're prepared. Like, if we have an emergency, we're going to do it. So those are all just things as we start ramping up, obviously, we're focused a little bit on head of the Charles race day, but we do have other races coming up, and, it's all really cool.
Think of it as part of your acquisition of knowledge and skill, and even experienced people can always improve. So tapering, big part of the plan. Enjoy it and go and try this for yourselves. Thank you to everybody who's been listening with us today. As I explained at the top of the program, we are going to be live on air in 2 hours. Is that correct, Marlene?
Oh, actually, just an hour and 10 minutes, hour and 20 minutes. We're at 16:33. We'll be back at the top of the hour at 1800.
Yeah, to talk how to steer the head of the Charles with Jim Dietz and Mark Wilson, who are both super experienced people when it comes to steering that particular racecourse. They're out of the park experience, way, way, way above Marlene and my personal capabilities. So we're really looking forward to that. And thank you so much for being with us on the show today. This has been Faster Masters Rowing Radio, the show dedicated to masters athletes who want fun, fitness, and confidence in their rowing. Become a student of the sport by buying a Faster Masters Rowing program subscription today. Go to fastermastersrowing.com/join. See you later.